Yukiteru Amano. Imagine checking your phone one day and seeing messages from the future. At first, you'd probably think, cool, I can see tomorrow's test answers. But for Yukiteru Amano, this so-called gift turns into a nightmare. Because guess what? He's not the only one with a future diary. 11 other people have one too, and they're all stuck in a brutal death game where the last one standing becomes a god. Everyone else? Well, let's just say they don't get happy endings. Yuki is probably the worst person to be thrown into this mess. He's quiet, avoids people, and would rather write about life than actually live it. His diary only tells him what's happening around him, not about himself. So if someone sneaks up on him, he's got no clue. Basically, he's the guy in a horror movie who doesn't even realize the killer is behind him. But then, in comes Yuno Gasai. She's sweet, devoted, and completely in love with Yuki. Sounds great, right? Until you realize her love is a little too intense. Her future diary literally updates her on everything Yuki does, down to the smallest detail. If he sneezes, she knows. If he moves an inch, she knows. And if anyone tries to hurt him, oh, they're the ones in trouble. At first, Yuki is just happy to have someone watching his back. But pretty soon, it's clear Yuno isn't just protecting him. She's obsessed with him. And when I say obsessed, I mean crossing every possible red flag. Obsessed. At first, Yuki wants nothing to do with this insane survival game. He's terrified, just trying to stay alive while stronger players wipe each other out. But as the game goes on, things start to change. He sees people die, is forced to make impossible choices, and realizes that if he doesn't start playing seriously, he's next. Little by little, the scared kid who just wanted to be left alone starts thinking differently. He stops relying entirely on Yuno and starts making his own moves. He figures out how to outsmart enemies, takes risks he never would have before, and by the end, he's not the same Yuki who started this game. But then the biggest twist drops and it changes everything. Yuno's not exactly who she says she is, and let's just say the truth is so mind-blowing it makes Yuki question everything. His past, his future, and even if any of this is real. And by the time it's over, Yuki is left with a decision that no one should ever have to make. And if you enjoy watching anime content, make sure to subscribe to the channel. Yuno Gasai. If there's one name that defines Future Diary, it's Yuno Gasai. Sweet, devoted, and absolutely terrifying. At first glance, she seems like your average anime heroine. Beautiful, soft-spoken, and completely in love with the main character, Yukiteru Amano. But spend 5 minutes with her and you'll realize there's nothing normal about Yuno. She isn't just in love with Yuki, she's obsessed with him. And in a battle royale where only one person can survive having someone obsessed with you, it's either a blessing or the worst curse imaginable. Yuno is the holder of the Yukiteru diary, which tells her everything about Yuki's actions in real time. She'll do anything to keep Yuki alive. Lie, manipulate, fight, kill, you name it. And she does it all with the same soft smile, like it's just another normal day. But here's the real question. Why? Why is Yuno so obsessed with Yuki? Why does she go to such terrifying lengths to protect him? The answer isn't just creepy, it's heartbreaking. Yuno didn't grow up in a loving home. Her parents were cruel, locking her in a cage, treating her like she wasn't even human. The only light in her life was Yuki. He once promised they'd marry in the future, and for Yuno, that promise became everything. It was the one thing that kept her going. So when she got the chance to be in the same game as him, she wasn't going to let anything take him away. But just when you think you have Yuno figured out, the story drops one of the craziest twists in anime history. The Yuno we know, she's not from this timeline. She actually won a previous survival game and became a god. But instead of being happy, she was alone, forever. So what does she do? She cheats the system, jumps to a different timeline, and replaces the real Yuno just to be with Yuki again. She didn't just kill for love, she destroyed an entire timeline for it. Takao Hiyama. You ever have a teacher that just felt a little off? Maybe they gave too much homework or they stared at you a little too long. Well, imagine finding out your teacher wasn't just weird, he was a full-blown serial killer. That's Takao Hiyama for you. The guy who's supposed to be grading tests is actually out here hunting people. And as if that wasn't bad enough, he gets invited to a battle royale where murder is literally the objective. If anyone was built for this game, it was him. Hayama holds the murder diary, which fits his whole hobby a little too well. His diary predicts the names of his future victims, giving him the ultimate head start in his twisted work. In any normal world, that would make him unstoppable. But this isn't a normal world, it's Future Diary, where everyone has a diary and no one is safe. And while Hayama might have been terrifying in the real world, in this game, he's just another contestant waiting to get erased. From the very first episode, Hayama wastes no time showing us what kind of person he is. He immediately goes after Yukiteru Amano, the nervous kid who just found out he's in a deathmatch. Hayama probably thought this was going to be easy. One quick kill, one less opponent to worry about. But he underestimated one thing, Yuno Gasai. And if there's one lesson every Future Diary character learns the hard way, it's that you never underestimate. Keigo Kurusu. Ever met someone who seemed too good to be true? The kind of person who plays by the rules, keeps their cool, and never lets emotions get in the way? That's Keigo Kurusu, the one guy in Future Diary who actually feels like he belongs in a crime drama instead of a death game. While everyone else is scheming, panicking, or straight up losing their minds, Kurusu is just doing his job. But here's the thing about good cops in bad situations. They either break the system or the system breaks them. Kurusu isn't your typical diary holder. He's a detective, a family man, and at first glance, one of the only sane people in this whole mess. Unlike the rest of the players, he's not obsessed with winning. He doesn't want to be a god, he just wants to protect his sick son and make sure innocent people don't get caught in the crossfire. But in a game where the only way to win is to kill, how long can someone like that survive before the pressure changes them? His diary, the investigation diary, is perfect for his job. It predicts all future crimes, which should make him an unstoppable detective. But in this game, it's both a blessing and a curse. While it gives him key intel, it also forces him to watch as the chaos unfolds, knowing what's coming but not always being able to stop it. And for a guy who believes in justice, that's a nightmare. At first, Kurusu tries to play fair. He's not like the others. He's not a killer, he's not power hungry, and he's definitely not crazy. Instead of fighting, he tries to end the game by investigating the organization behind it. He even teams up with Yukiteru and Yuno, thinking they might be his best shot at stopping this madness. Big mistake, because if there's one thing you should never do, it's put faith in Yuno Gasai. As the game drags on, Kurusu is pushed further and further into a corner. His son's condition is getting worse, the game is spiraling out of control, and suddenly the man who swore to uphold the law is making deals with some of the most dangerous players. He reaches his breaking point when he realizes there's no way out, except to cheat, and that's when everything falls apart. Kurusu betrays Yuki and Yuno, setting them up to be eliminated. It's not personal, it's survival. But here's the kicker, in trying to outsmart the game, he ends up playing right into its hands. Deus, the god of space and time, sees everything, and the moment Kurusu steps over the line, the game turns on him. His diary, the one thing that gave him control, betrays him. His own future is rewritten against him, leaving him with nowhere to run. In his final moments, Kurusu realizes the truth. There was no escape, no loopholes, no way to protect his son and keep his morals intact. And rather than letting the game claim him, he takes matters into his own hands, ending his own life on his own terms. It's a tragic but fitting end for a man who spent his whole life fighting against corruption, only to be consumed by it in the end. Reisuke Houjou. Reisuke Houjou may look like an innocent 5-year-old, but in Future Diary, even kids aren't safe from the madness. Don't let his cute face fool you. This kid is one of the most terrifying diary holders in the game. He's not just a child caught in the crossfire. He's a full-blown killer with the intelligence, planning, and sheer ruthlessness to outplay people twice. No, 3 times his age. If you ever thought kids were harmless, Reisuke is here to prove you dead wrong. Reisuke is the owner of the Hypervision Diary, a diary that gives him predictions in doodle form. Cute, right? Not really. These little sketches hold key insights about future events, and he uses them in ways no normal 5-year-old should even be able to comprehend. While most players rely on brute force or manipulation, Reisuke plays a long game, setting traps, poisoning food, and using his small size to gain trust before striking when you least expect it. The scariest part, he enjoys it. He doesn't just want to win, he wants to play. You'd think he's just some scared orphan, but behind that innocent smile, he's plotting their downfall every second. He plays along, acts like a clueless kid, and then, boom, poisoned drinks, hidden bombs, elaborate schemes that force Yukiteru into high-stakes survival scenarios where one wrong move means instant death. And the worst part, he almost wins. If it weren't for Yuno's insane paranoia and Yukiteru's luck, he could have wiped them out without breaking a sweat. Reisuke's battle with Yuno is one of the most intense in the series. She knows he's dangerous, but even she struggles against his cleverness. In their final showdown, he uses everything: traps, misdirection, and even a gas mask to counter her attacks. But at the end of the day, Yuno is still Yuno, and she never loses when Yukiteru's life is on the line. She manages to take him down in a fight that's both brutal and tragic. He may have been a monster, but he was still just a kid. Tsubaki Kasugano. Tsubaki Kasugano is one of the most deceptive players in Future Diary. At first glance, she seems like a fragile, blind girl trapped in a cult she never wanted to be part of. But don't be fooled. Behind that soft-spoken demeanor is a survivor who's been forced to play a role she never asked for. Her diary, the Clairvoyance Diary, lets her see everything happening around her temple, giving her an insane advantage over anyone who enters her domain. But power doesn't always mean safety, and Tsubaki's life is anything but easy. Tsubaki's backstory is straight up tragic. She was born into the Omakata cult, and from a young age, she was treated as their so-called holy maiden. Sounds nice, right? Nope. In reality, she was nothing more than a prisoner. The cult abused her, used her, and took away any chance she had at a normal life. And after years of suffering, she became twisted. She lost faith in people, seeing them as nothing more than pawns she could use to get what she wanted: revenge and an escape from the nightmare she was born into. When the diary game begins, Tsubaki acts like a frail girl who needs saving. She plays innocent, luring Yukiteru into believing she's a victim. But in reality, she's setting him up to be her sacrificial pawn. She wants to use him to take out Yuno, who she sees as a major threat. And let's be real, she's not wrong, but underestimating Yuno is a huge mistake. And it's one that costs Tsubaki everything. When Yuno realizes Tsubaki is trying to manipulate Yukiteru, she doesn't hesitate. She wipes out her entire cult in one of the most brutal takedowns in the series. It's a bloodbath, and by the end of it, Tsubaki is left helpless. With her entire army gone and her plans shattered, she meets her end in a final confrontation with Yuno, who doesn't give second chances. Marco Ikusaba. In the future Diary Death game, most diary holders are out for themselves, but Marco Ikusaba and Ai Makami, they fight together. This isn't your typical power-hungry duo. They're an actual couple, and their love is what makes them terrifying. Unlike most players who constantly betray or manipulate others, these two are completely in sync, physically, mentally, and emotionally. When they fight, it's like watching a perfect tag team that doesn't even need to speak to understand each other. If love is a battlefield, Marco and Ai turned it into a bloodbath. Marco and Ai are the owners of the Exchange Diaries, which work in a pretty unique way. Unlike most future diaries that predict their own owner's future, these two diaries predict each other's fate. That means they always know what's happening to the other, making them nearly impossible to take by surprise. If you attack Marco, Ai already knows. If Ai's in danger, Marco's already moving to stop it. Good luck trying to separate them. It's like fighting two people with one mind. Marco, the brute force of the duo, is a beast in hand-to-hand combat. He's got strength, agility, and the kind of reflexes that make you question if he's even human. He doesn't need a weapon. His fists are enough to turn enemies into punching bags. Ai, on the other hand, is just as deadly, but in a more calculated way. She's smart, quick-witted, and knows how to manipulate the battlefield to their advantage. When these two are together, they're an unstoppable force. Their biggest fight comes when they go up against Yukiteru and Yuno. Marco, being the fearless brawler he is, throws hands with Yuno in a brutal one-on-one. And for once, Yuno struggles. Marco's raw strength and skill make it one of the toughest fights she's ever had. Meanwhile, Ai is going after Yukiteru, proving that she's just as ruthless as her partner. The fight is chaotic, intense, and one of the best matchups in the series. But even the strongest love stories don't always get a happy ending. As much as Marco and Ai fought for each other, they were up against a force even they couldn't beat, Yuno's sheer insanity. In the end, they go down together, refusing to let go even in death. Kamado Ueshita. Kamado Ueshita is probably the most non-lethal player in the future Diary Death game. While most diary holders are out here scheming, killing, and doing whatever it takes to survive, she's just trying to help people. That's right, this lady isn't playing the game to win. She runs an orphanage and genuinely cares about others, which makes her stand out in a competition where trust usually gets you killed. Kamado's diary, the Apprentice Diary, is different from the rest. Instead of predicting her own future, it allows her to create temporary future diaries for other people. In theory, this could have made her super dangerous. Imagine an army of diary users at her command. But Kamado isn't a fighter. Instead of using her power to dominate, she supports others, trying to keep them alive in a game designed to wipe everyone out. Her peaceful approach puts her at odds with the other diary holders. Deus, the god of time and space, doesn't exactly approve of her trying to keep people from killing each other. And when 11th, the real mastermind of the game, shows up, he takes advantage of her kind nature and tries to use her abilities for himself. In a world full of manipulation, Kamado's kindness makes her vulnerable. Despite not being a fighter, Kamado is incredibly important. She provides shelter, guidance, and hope in a game that's all about destruction. She even helps Yukiteru when he's at one of his lowest points, showing that not everyone in this deathmatch is a power-hungry lunatic. But kindness only gets you so far. When Yuno and Yukiteru go full chaos mode, Kamado's orphanage and everything she worked for get caught in the crossfire. Minene Uryuu. Minene Uryuu is not your average terrorist. In a game full of scheming psychopaths and desperate survivors, she's the wild card, the one who doesn't take orders, doesn't play by the rules, and definitely doesn't need saving. From the moment she appears, blowing up a school and taking an entire classroom hostage, you know she's not messing around. But here's the twist. Minene isn't just some mindless killer. She's got a past, a purpose, and arguably one of the best character arcs in Future Diary. Minene holds the Escape Diary, which is exactly what it sounds like. No matter how bad a situation gets, her diary shows her the best way to escape. That means catching her is almost impossible. This makes her one of the hardest diary holders to kill, and she knows it. Unlike some of the other players who rely entirely on their diaries, Minene combines her future sight with actual skill. She's an expert at setting traps, thinking on her feet, and when all else fails, blowing stuff up. At first, she's all about destruction and chaos, seeing the survival game as just another battlefield. She's got a deep hatred for religion and authority, thanks to a childhood filled with war and loss. She doesn't trust anyone, doesn't believe in gods, and certainly doesn't care about anyone's sob story. But as the game goes on, cracks start to show. Despite everything, she starts forming connections, reluctantly at first. But it happens. She gets caught up in Yukiteru's mess, ends up dealing with Nishijima, who somehow falls for her, and even starts questioning her own beliefs. One of her biggest moments comes when she loses an eye and still keeps going like it's nothing. This woman literally tapes her own eye shut and keeps fighting. If that's not peak anime badassery, I don't know what is, but what really makes her stand out is her growth. By the end of the game, she's not just fighting for herself anymore. She helps Yukiteru, takes on crazy opponents, and even, against all odds, falls in love. Karyuudo Tsukishima. Karyuudo Tsukishima, the 10th diary holder, had all the makings of a terrifying opponent, on paper at least. As the leader of a secluded mountain village, he was known for his hunting skills and had a diary tailor-made for tracking prey. His hunter diary gave him real-time updates on the movements of his targets, making him the ultimate predator. If you were in his territory, you weren't getting out unseen. Sounds like a strong contender for the survival game, right? Well, not exactly. Karyuudo was a big fish in a very small pond. His skills worked perfectly in his own environment, where he controlled everything. But once the real death game started, it became clear that his tactics wouldn't work against people like Yuno Gasai. The moment Yukiteru and Yuno wandered into his village, Karyuudo decided to take them out. Bad idea. He might have been a master of the hunt, but Yuno was playing an entirely different game, one where hesitation meant death. Instead of setting up a slow, strategic takedown, Karyuudo fell right into Yuno's trap. He assumed that just because he had home field advantage, he was in control. But Yuno? She doesn't do fair fights. Before he even got a chance to properly hunt them, she struck first, forcing him into a close quarters fight where his tracking abilities became useless. The mighty hunter suddenly became prey. And then comes his embarrassing end. Despite all his experience, all his survival instincts, Karyuudo met his fate in the dumbest way possible, falling into his own spiked pit trap. It's the kind of death that makes you want to pause the episode and process what just happened. A guy who spent his life tracking and killing threats gets outplayed so hard that he literally walked straight into his own demise. In the grand scheme of the future diary death game, Karyuudo was less of a real contender and more of a speed bump on Yukiteru and Yuno's path. He had potential, but he was too cautious, too reliant on his environment. Bacchus. Bacchus isn't just another diary holder. He's the mayor of Sakurami City and one of the most influential players in the future diary game. While others are running around trying to survive, Bacchus plays the long game. He doesn't rely on brute strength or insane stunts like Yuno. He controls everything from the shadows. And the best part? He was involved in making the game itself. Bacchus worked alongside Deus Ex Machina, helping refine the future diary system and implement it within Sakurami City. That means while most diary holders are still figuring out how their powers work, he already knows everything. His diary, known as the server diary, doesn't just predict his own future. It connects to the entire city's security systems, traffic, and communications. Cameras, phones, computers. Bacchus has access to all of it. If you so much as breathe in Sakurami City, he probably knows about it. With that kind of power, you'd think he'd be untouchable. But Bacchus isn't just playing to win the game. He wants to rewrite the rules. Unlike Deus, who's looking for a worthy successor, Bacchus believes humans should be their own gods. He wants to break the cycle, replace Deus with a human-led system, and reshape the future on his own terms. And to do that, he's willing to eliminate anyone who stands in his way. Despite his calculated mind, Bacchus isn't immune to overconfidence. He sees himself as a genius, but he underestimates just how unpredictable his opponents can be. He tries to manipulate the other diary holders, but as the game spirals out of control, so does his grip on power. His greatest mistake? Thinking he could control Yuno Gasai. When Bacchus finally faces off against the remaining diary holders, it's not his resources or strategy that fail him, it's his lack of caution. He sees himself as the mastermind, but in the end, his ambition blinds him to the chaos he helped create. He might have shaped the game, but that doesn't mean he was ever truly in control. Deus Machina. Deus Ex Machina isn't just another player in the future diary game, he's the one who made it. As the god of time and space, he's on an entirely different level from the other diary holders. While everyone else is fighting for survival, Deus is sitting at the top, watching everything unfold like it's one big reality show. But here's the thing, his power isn't infinite. He may be a god, but even gods have a time limit. Deus is dying. His time as the ruler of reality is running out, and he needs a replacement. But instead of choosing someone directly, he decides to make things interesting by throwing 12 random people into a brutal survival game where the winner takes his throne. And just to make things even crazier, he gives each of them a future diary, a phone that predicts the future in a way that matches their personality. Some use their diaries for strategy, some for survival, and some, like Yuno Gasai, use it for straight-up chaos. At first, Deus plays the role of an impartial god, just overseeing the game. But the truth is, he's not just a spectator. He interferes when it suits him, bending the rules, reviving players, and even making deals behind the scenes. He secretly favors Yukiteru Amano, the so-called first diary holder, because he sees potential in him. Yukiteru isn't strong, smart, or ruthless like the others, but he has something Deus values: the ability to change. Despite all his godlike power, Deus makes one critical mistake. He underestimates just how insane humans can be. He thought he was in control, but the deeper the game goes, the messier things get. Yuno Gasai, the wildcard of the game, does things even Deus didn't see coming. She manipulates fate itself, breaking the very rules of time and space, and suddenly even Deus starts losing his grip on reality. And in the end, his time does run out. But here's the twist. Deus knew things would go off the rails. He wasn't looking for a perfect successor. He was looking for someone who could survive absolute chaos and still come out on top. And in a game where death is around every corner, that's the kind of god the future needs.